Sean, we see things all the time when we're working with our pros, swings that we don't always see in our amateur swings.
Yeah, we have a whole series based around it.
That's right. You may have seen it, pros versus hams. But in today's video, we want to show you 3 key moves that we see the pros do that we rarely see amateurs do.
Yeah, and again, we're in the business of finding the commonalities of great players that you can apply to your game. Not ones that only these physical specimens can
The outliers. No interest in that.
Our business is finding the commonalities of great players that the average golfer can apply to their game, and we make it understandable.
Right. So we're going to show you 3 things that pros do that you can do and should be doing in your golf swing. They're not going to, you don't have to go on a fitness or flexibility program to do these. These are just conceptual, small things that they do that are going to have a big impact on your game once you start doing them. Sean, if there's one part of the golf swing that really kind of separates the best players from the rest of us, it's the transition. It's moving into the top of the swing, coming out of the top of the swing.
Most difficult part of the swing for golfers in general, even tour players.
We see so much variation, and so many things really are uncoverable if that's not working correctly.
Yeah, so there's some things that you can do in the backswing that put yourself at such a disadvantage that it makes transition in the body and the club impossible to do correctly.
Yep.
So the things we're seeing with tour players on gears using 3D data, we see these commonalities that the great players have that we want to add to your swing. Right?
That's right. But if, let's say the backswing's perfect.
Yeah.
You follow the swing system. You've got checkpoints 1, 2, and 3, and 4, moving into 4, just dead on the money. You can still undo all that with a poor concept or a poor idea in that transition window.
Yeah, and let's talk about the first one that kind of leads in the transition and coming out, and that's shoulder tilts.
Absolutely.
Right, so I'll just kind of give you the overview here really quick on how mentally to think about this. If I was to stand straight up, I would turn my shoulders on a level angle, right? Level to the ground. Well, let's say I'm bent over at 40 degrees. As I go to the top, I want to have 40 degrees of tilt to the shoulders at the top. I don't want to go back and turn level. The tour players we see maintaining these shoulder tilts, the amateurs we see going in level, and the problem with that is when they're level, the ball's down there, what are they going to do? They're going to rebend over.
You're going to really have to start
terrible
changing.
downswing. Yeah.
Yeah, so at the top of the swing, like when you did the turning level to the ground, in the posture of a swing, that becomes turning basically level around the spine. And that's what we'll show you here in a second in gears. It's that kind of keeping the shoulders at a 90 to where that spine angle's at.
Great point. So if my spine is here, I'm turning my shoulders 90 degrees to my spine angle, right?
Here, so it'd be something like that right there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a 90 degree. That's what we're after. When that starts to get out of tilt,
if I level this out, which is
trouble.
Commonality of high handicappers, which is what we're trying to get out of, that first move down in transition has to be a rebending. You can see how that tips the club out over the plane. And a lot of you that swing over the top, it's caused because you immediately go flat in the backside.
That's right. So we're going to show you that. Then we've got 2 more that has to do with the transition. One is what this right arm does relative to the raising and lowering.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So once you get to the top of the swing, your right arm has gotten to this kind of holding the tray position, and it started here, right? So I folded in a little bit of elevation as I turn. I have to have that lowering move right away from the top where my upper arm reconnects immediately, which lets the club lower down, and that allows the club to be shallow as I rotate down.
And we did a video on this a little while back with Harvey Penick talking about that in the magic move. Just CG my forearm below my elbow off. So you're just looking at my elbow to my shoulder, right? That's the part of the arm we're talking about. That needs to lower.
Yeah, this part of the arm right here is kind of reconnecting into his armpit.
And it's not a driving it into my side, it's a lowering, and it's a pretty rapid lowering, which again, we'll show you here in just a second.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with the bend. We're gonna talk about the bend here
in just a second.
But it's the lowering of this upper arm to start the downswing. That has to be in place.
Yeah, that's what gets the club lowering, allows you to get the club onto the eventual impact plane, right, as you turn, because that turning is a steepening move. The lowering of the arms blends it together.
That's right.
So you can swing on a swing plane.
All right. Now let's talk about the other piece of that. That's below the elbow now.
Yeah.
Where is this happening? What's happening here?
Massive contributor to good golf swings.
That's absolutely right.
And the more we look at it, the more we figure out how important it is.
Yes.
This right arm motion. So the bending of the right arm or trail arm in the backswing. The good players will rarely bend it over 90 degrees, right? Now from the top, because this is kind of what this is about, the transition, right?
By 90, he's mean that's 180, that's 90.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I'm 90 here. It's hard to see on a 2D camera, but I'm 90 here. The kiss of death is when you start down, the higher handicappers will narrow that angle in an attempt to get lag.
So they may have this first part, this lowering part right, but they're decreasing that angle, or actually increasing that angle on gears. Right, this is going from 90 to maybe 120.
That's a death move.
Big trouble from there.
Yeah, and those death moves, you know, we always say there's a lot of different ways to do it, but if you've got a death move,
You're in big trouble.
you got to change that.
That's right.
That one's got to go.
That's a red flag.
That one's got to go. So if I'm at 90 here and I'm lowering, I'm also have the feeling that I'm widening.
Yes. Right?
And the widening, this is a really opposite concept for some people. The widening motion is what keeps the club head from fleeing out. If I pull in and attempt to get lag and narrow these angles, I'm pulling the hands inward inside of the mass of the club head, which actually makes me cast worse.
That's such an important point you just made, because when golfers who do this tell us they're doing that because they're losing too much lag when they don't.
Makes it worse.
But all that does is, if you just consider the mass of the club somewhere around here, when I pull this in, that kicks that mass of the club out. If I get wider,
keeps it back.
I'm able to keep it back behind me, right? It's not, nothing's forcing it out. So you're actually creating the move that forces you to lose lag by trying to get, you know, this whatever from whatever old golfer that we've seen from bad video.
Yeah.
Now that we can measure this, we actually see the combination of these moves and how they play out. That's what we're going to show you now. Let's go and look at gears real quick. You'll see all three of these pieces, how they fit together in this transition window. Then we're going to come back and show you some drills. Let's take a look at our pro here. And this golfer is very much in the middle of what we see. So he's very neutral with regards to what we see with the parameters we're talking about today, with these three key elements that you definitely want in your golf swing. He hits the ball long ways and he hits it pretty darn straight. So he's a really good example of what we're talking about with these three elements. So let's first take a look at his shoulder tilt relative to his spine angle. And we're going to use both the down the line and face on view so you can see how both of these components kind of play with one another as he moves throughout the swing. So you can see right here at address how he has some tilt to his shoulders. It's set up relative to his spine, relative to the rest of his body angles. And as he gets started in the swing, you're also going to notice how that immediately starts to change. So one of the areas that we see golfers get in trouble with is this idea of a low and slow takeaway. That tends to pull the club in behind you and keep the left shoulder too high for too long. You can see right here, our golfer is really shifting the tilt to his shoulders. He's now dropping that left shoulder underneath the right a good bit. And as he rolls up to the top here, we can see he's in that classic 90-degree shoulder tilt to his spine angle. And we can see the rest of the corresponding body tilts, but that's a key area here for what we're talking about in this video. He's got that classic 90-degree angle between his spine and his shoulders. And then as he starts to come down in his swing, you're going to see how long that left shoulder stays lower than the right. You can see by this green line here, it doesn't level out until right here. So he got his left shoulder low very early in the takeaway, kept it low all the way to the top, right? He didn't level out at the top. And then he kept it low in the downswing till right here, right where he's delivering the golf club. And if you can do those series of movements there, if you can get the left shoulder low early, keep it low at the top, and keep it low starting down, you're going to be in a good spot to implement these next two key components that we're talking about. We're still looking at our same golfer, same golf swing. Now we're going to focus in on his right arm, his upper arm lift throughout the golf swing. And we did a more in-depth video on this part of the swing, so you can check that out if you want to see how these numbers are kind of compiled. But what you're looking at is we've got his vertical spine locked at dead vertical. So that's that 90-degree vertical spine. Then we're looking straight down his shoulder line, this green rod, straight down that rod, so we can see the same perspective of his right arm bend. So we can't show this in video form. I have to show you the images because we have to move the camera every inch of the swing, we have to keep moving the camera to see this exact perspective. So we got him here at setup, and he's 35 degrees elevated arm relative to that virtual spine. And the second image here is the top of the swing, and he's 65 degrees. So he's elevated that upper right arm 30 degrees from address to the top of his swing. You can also see we included his lag angle, and that's this angle between the left forearm and the club shaft. You can see here at the top of his swing, it's 105 degrees. Now our third image is that left arm parallel in the downswing. So it took him 30 degrees from address to the top. He's recovered 25 of those degrees in this short little window from the top to left arm parallel. Now, there's no way he can leave his arms up and accomplish that. So these guys are lowering this upper right arm very early in the downswing, and they're lowering it a lot. Now, a lot of golfers are under the impression that if you lower that right arm, and especially when we look at the next element here, the straightening of the right arm, that you lose lag and will cast the club. That's not the case. As you can see here, he went from 105 degrees of lag angle at the top down to 96 degrees. So he increased lag while this was happening, while his right arm was lowering. And you'll see here in just a second as his right arm started to straighten. So that's the idea of how the arm moves in the golf swing, the elevation and lowering of the right arm. Now let's take a look at that arm bend. So again, we got same golfer, same golf swing. And the numbers you're seeing on top of the screen here are his elbow bend numbers. And we included the left arm as well, so you can just get an idea of what that does. But we really want to focus on the right arm bend, and that's the number with the R beside it. So as he gets moving to the top, we can see right here, this is kind of about half his backswing, somewhere in here. He's around 40 degrees, 35 to 40 degrees. As we roll him up to the top of his swing, right in here, he's at 80 degrees. So he's bent his right arm 80 degrees from address to the top. And about half of that bend occurred about halfway in the backswing. We see a lot of golfers try to avoid collapsing the arms at the top by trying to keep that right arm straight, and that will almost guarantee that you collapse at the top. So instead, you want to have this gradual bending of the right arm like you see our pro here do. Now, what's interesting is at the top, there's basically two variations from how these great players move in the downswing. One, you're going to see what our golfer here is doing. There's going to be, depending, again, a lot of this depends on the momentum that's carried into the top. So if, again, he's a fast club head guy, fast swinger, you're going to see some bend, some extra bend coming out of the top. Now, there's momentum involved in getting to the top of the swing, but he's not trying to bend his arm. He's actually trying to straighten his arm. And a little bit of that momentum, we're fleshy, we're a sack of gelatin with bones in it. So we're not like a vice or a robot. We have some give in those joints, and that's what you're seeing here. Some golfers who arrive at the top in a much quieter way will start straightening that right arm immediately. There's no extra bend going on, but you typically will see either no bend or just a handful of degrees, what you're seeing here, then immediately start to straighten. And by left arm parallel, he's lost more bend than where he was at the top. And that's the point to look at. So he was 80 at the top. He's 74 right here. And he's on his way to straightening the right arm. And you combine that with the lowering of the right arm. And you saw how the lag increased right here. You can see how that lag increases. He's keeping the mass of the club head behind his body as both of those are happening. And that's what creates the lag in the downswing. He's not trying to hold it. He's straightening and lowering his right arm as that left shoulder works down. And that's how you get this tour-like look to your golf swing. All right, now you've seen the proper motions, right? You've seen how all this ties together. Now let's kind of train this.
Okay.
And we've got one drill with two variations that are going to really kind of give you a progression to work through. So Sean, let's talk about the drill that we use a lot for this.
Yeah, so I got this from Gary Gilchrist, great coach. Teaches at a junior academy in Orlando. I worked for him for a while, and I learned this drill from him. You hook the club around your lead arm, right? And then grab it with your lead arm over the top. Okay, now it's almost like a hook.
Fancy marching move or something.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, now set up to the ground. put the club in the crook of your elbow. I don't even know if that's the right word, crook of your elbow, but
Sounds good.
between your upper and lower arms, there's a little spot here between the arm where the arm folds, right? Now, the good thing about this drill, when you go to the top, you can feel it if you overfold the right arm, right?
You start squeezing the shaft.
Yeah, you start squeezing the shaft. I don't want you to feel that. So as you go up, you can monitor where this elbow fold is, right? So your arm has come up a little bit, because at address, it would touch it, but if I go to the top, it will still be there without squeezing it.
You just made something click in my brain.
Okay.
Do that again. So when you squeeze the shaft, and this is something that we see, we've started noticing the last several months, when we see this right arm overly bend, so you'd be squeezing the shaft, your shoulder rotation suffers.
Yeah.
You lose shoulder rotation when this right arm starts to bend. When you get the right arm working correctly, you gain shoulder rotation.
Yeah, so Mike, if I fold this elbow, my shoulder almost goes towards my hand.
Yes.
If I straighten it, you can see the shoulder go behind my head more, and that's a huge key. You get like a 2-for-1
This
here.
is a bonus for this drill, yeah.
Yeah, so now from the top.
Yep.
So I've got my width in my right arm. I don't feel the squeeze. I've got a little spacing here. We don't want this.
No, we're not trying to get to the top with the elbow tucked.
The trick from here, as you start down, you're going to feel the arm lower off the shaft, right?
Yep.
I don't want to keep it on there, because that would, if I did that, I'd have to go this way to lower the club down. So I'm going to let it come off there as I turn back to the ball. So I'm getting some motion away, which reconnects my upper arm to my chest. As I'm rotating back toward the ball, you can go ahead and chip a ball that way if you wanted to.
So you're not doing this, right?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be trying to drive this in as you do that.
Right, so once I get to the top, I've got a little bit wider than 90 with my elbow angle. I'm gonna let this arm reconnect, right? I'm just gonna rotate back toward the ball here.
Okay. Let's do a couple reps of that.
Sure. Reconnect the arm, rotate to the ball.
Okay.
This way. And you can even monitor where your shoulder angle is as well.
Use your phone, use a live view, right, to video yourself doing this. Now the progression of this, so let's have you do that again.
Okay.
Is to take like a wedge, this is a 7-iron. We're just gonna hold it in the right hand.
Okay.
Now we're gonna add the club, the weight of the club and the coordination of the club to this.
I'm gonna let that lower.
Yep.
And I'm just gonna swing through.
Okay.
Okay.
Do that face on so they can see how well that kind of gets the hands in that tour-like position.
Gonna let that lower off the, and otherwise I'd be spinning, right? Let that lower off the shaft.
Your left shoulder staying low.
Yeah,
right?
I'm
It's
straight.
not popping up.
I'm letting the right arm add width instead of narrowing, because I would pinch the shaft again, down in front, and just rotate through. And then this end might end up on your upper arm here in the finish. The whole key here, though, we're trying to get you guys not to do this, right? And we're trying to keep you from doing this. So this arm lowering, it's going to almost lower behind you a little, and when you add the turn, that creates a swing plane, and that should make a light bulb go on for some of you.
It's a great point you made. Do that one more time with the club in your hand.
Yeah.
You're going to see now what shallows the club. Sean can shallow this club as much as he wants by how he's supinating, pronating that forearm.
I can. I could do this as much as I want. It's
So
not this.
Yeah, so you may try this once and see the club steepen. That's just because you've trained yourself to steepen the club.
Yeah, you've trained to this motion.
Yeah.
All you have to do is let this right arm lower on this angle, right?
Yep.
And that shallows the club nicely. You could even have a little motion with the wrist this way.
Yep.
And that will shallow it. But definitely you don't want to pull this way and get this elbow working behind you and getting this arm too much internally rotated.
So the progression is to do this drill without the club in your right hand. Then when you get proficient with it, do it with the club in your right hand. And then lastly, you can chip balls out there with that. So you really start to coordinate all these movements with the ball in play. Again, film your swing as you're doing this so you can see if it starts to fall apart, don't keep going, kind of reel it back in a little bit. Make sure you're getting the sequencing of that right, because it's such a big deal. Keeping the shoulders 90 degrees to the spine at the top, letting the upper arm lower, and the hinging of the elbow here widen the downswing.
Yeah, we didn't mention it, but this drill too, you can monitor your shoulder angle. So you got kind of a catch-all drill.
That's exactly
Don't
right.
even need to hit balls with it. Do it at the house. You're going to see some improvement.
Awesome.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and give it a like. Also, if you have any questions about today's video, or you have an idea of a video that you want us to shoot, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. We read every single comment. We also respond to the comments. So again, leave us a comment if you have any questions or there's anything you'd like to see. Now, If you haven't already, click the subscribe button. We have videos coming out every single week and we don't want you to miss one. So by clicking subscribe, that ensures you're notified right away when a new video comes out. And hey, if you want to add instant distance to your driving, we all do, everybody wants more distance, go ahead and click the link in the pinned comment below. You're going to see a link. Click on it. It's going to take you to a page. You're going to enter your name and email address. We're going to send you an email where you're going to get access to instant distance, which is a video training that we put out. We know it's going to help you. We know we're going to see you farther down the fairway.